Hello and welcome to Carnivorist Chats. My name is James, your host. I started this podcast to help other folks share their own healing stories and to interview thought leaders and experts in the carnivore, keto, and low oxalate space. Before we begin, I'd like to give a shout out to Equip Foods and the Carnivore Bar. As an affiliate, you can use the link in the show notes to get a discount on their products when you check out using the code Carnivorist. Thanks in advance for listening, subscribing, and any likes or shares. And now, on with the podcast. So great to have you. Thank you for taking the time out to chat with me today.
Well, hey, thanks for having me.
Well, Sally, before we start, I just you had a post, I believe it was this morning or yesterday, where you listed all the things that you have healed using the carnivore diet. And I'm going to read out a few of those things, and then we're going to get into how you did it, where your story started. But let's go down the list here. I just wrote them down. So inflammation, edema, and pain gone, asthma, blood pressure normal, all your labs are excellent. Eosinophilic esophagitis cured, insulin resistance, you healed your microbiome, fatty liver, dry eye and mouth, hair loss resolved, A1C, eye floaters almost gone, sleep apnea, eye pressure, off all meds, thyroid, Hashimoto's antibodies down, and over 112 pounds lost. That is absolutely incredible, Sally.
Yeah.
I'm so happy for you. Really incredible.
Thank you.
So please let's tell folks all about you and how you came to this way of eating. What is your history? And then I know you have quite a tale to tell.
I used to do keto. I was a big proponent of keto. My daughter writes keto cookbooks, but when I was diagnosed with Hashimoto, that hit me. I knew that with any kind of autoimmune issue, that once you have one, you're going to develop another and another and another. And I have friends that have all these things going on and clients, and I'm just like, no. Like, no, that's not going to be me. So I researched, I did a lot of research. I had to find out what could work with Hashimoto. And I had no idea you could actually get rid of it, kind of like type 2 diabetes. So the people that I talked to that had Hashimoto, the ones that had gotten rid of it, they had done pure carnivore and no dairy. And so that's where I started. I decided to go there. Now it wasn't quite that simple though, because I was super addicted to, I literally would live on sugar for months at a time. No protein, just bags and bags of whatever. And for me though, that was at the time my life, and it was me burying all my emotions, and it was a sensory thing. It would distract me. So I didn't feel those things, but it was only for a moment, So then, of course, from there, the moment's over, and then it's, oh, I need more. But I got so inflamed, so sick, so edemic. I didn't realize just how much edema was in my body. I knew my ankles were huge, but I would squat down and it felt like my skin was going to rip in my legs. And then I couldn't do stairs. I did them, but it was difficult. And just breathing in general. And it wasn't even the asthma. I had so much edema in my chest, around my lungs and my heart. And it was during COVID, and the diagnosis came before COVID. And I had started something. I think I was doing like a ketovore. And then COVID hit, and of course, everything went to the wind. Because I didn't realize just what I needed to do exactly. And so I got very, very sick during that time. I was heading back into the school system, which terrified me because I had so much scar tissue in my lungs, and I'm going to die. I'm going to die. And it was when I was going back into the school system, I had to go home, be in my house, because I had been staying with my granddaughter. And I remember sitting at their house, and I was so sick. And I was like, if I want to live past this next year, I have to do something. And my granddaughter, just looking at her, she was born under a pound, and she was hit with so many things that should have taken her life and didn't. and she was thriving. And I'm just like, what am I doing? I'm going to kill myself with everything I'm putting in my body and not doing something about it. And her her heart, her whole soul, her being is what kind of woke me up, because I'm looking at the school system going back in. I'm like, I could die. So that's what's my thinking. And why? For what? And so she changed everything for me, and that and the diagnosis. And but the thing is, I had to be able to be important enough to me to do this. Yeah. And I never was. I've been pummeled in relationships, pummeled just by life itself, and played the victim. And in this moment, it was a matter of choosing me. And I'd never done it before. I had lost weight all, hundreds of times, and it was always for some other reason. And this time it wasn't. This time it had to be for me. And that was extremely difficult because I had no self-worth. And just taking that little step and just choosing to live, because I was just existing. I really wasn't living. And that changed everything. And in that process, I had to learn that I could never have sugar again. I knew enough that it was like an alcoholic or like a drug addict, and I could never have it again. And that took a while too. It was a process. I mourned it. It was my friend. Um, but the thing is, by giving it up, by completely just cold turkeying it, it changed everything. And that's what made it successful.
And Sally, when I heard you say that for the first time, it had to be important. I had to be important enough, to for this to work. It really, really struck me. I mean, that's such a powerful statement for you, and you finding that on your journey, and using your why. You used your, it was a granddaughter, yes, and
Yeah, Ruby.
how she was a preemie, and you said, if this young lady can survive, I can do it. I mean, just incredible. So you decided that this enough was enough. How, for me, my angel came in the form of Sally Norton, who is probably known to you when I started
Yeah.
investigating oxalates in my vegan background. For you, I understand you found Jason Fung and Dr. Berry and those folks online. Tell us about that. How did you find them, and what said to you, okay, this is how I'm going to help myself. This is how I'm going to heal.
Well, I was at my daughter's for almost an entire year. I was living there, and I'd work all day, and take care of Ruby afterwards. And my son-in-law listened to Dr. Berry. He really does deep dive researches into health and everything pretty much. And so I trusted what he would say. He would watch people on YouTube. He really, really researches things. And so he kept saying, you need to listen to Dr. Berry and Dr. Fung. I had read his book. I read everything I could get my hands on. But the easiest thing at first was just watching them on YouTube, YouTube or Instagram or wherever they would post. And I just, I learned so much about the healing process, especially with fasting. You're told, do not fast if you get thyroid issues. Do not fast if you're hypokalemic, which is super low potassium. And I just knew after listening to everybody that I was never going to heal on a cellular level without the fasting. And so I jumped into that as well. And Dr. Berry, at the time, he was a real big proponent with carnivore. Everything I heard was carnivore. And so his words, plus the words, I sought out people in different groups that healed their Hashimoto. And they all said the same thing. They all said, it's like we did carnivore, no dairy. And they got rid of it. I'm finding now with this, a lot of people that say, I got rid of Hashimoto. And I'll be like, okay, great. What were your numbers? What were they? What are they now? Your antibody numbers. And they're like, I don't know. I'm like, how do you know you got rid of it? And that's just hitting me now because I have a spreadsheet. I monitor everything, and I want to see if I'm progressing or not, and what do I need to do different? But everything I learned from listening to them, I incorporated into what I was doing, and I would tweak it along the way. But now, with Hashimoto, I've learned, I mean, it is a long process. It is a very slow healer. Some autoimmune issues are gone, like the dry eye and dry mouth. I think it's Sjogren's. That went pretty quickly. I still use drops like once a day, just very tears, but nothing like it was. And but Hashimoto is another beast.
Yeah.
And I mean, everyone jumped on the iodine bandwagon. I took iodine, everything went through the roof, everything went wacky. And I was like, no, this is not for everybody, not for people with TPO antibodies. It's a whole different ballgame, and you have to monitor everything along the way to see what's working and what doesn't.
Yeah. When I first started and was investigating my own health, Sally, my thyroid was all over the place. I mean, my GP was testing me for every autoimmune disorder possible. We tested for Hashis, but I did not have it. But I was hypothyroid when I first started my journey. So I had things like my hair falling out, my energy fatigue, which are typical signs, very dry skin, flaky skin. And then as I got sicker, my thyroid actually swung. I went to hyper, and then my T4 was elevated, all out of whack. And thankfully, everything for me is completely normal now and stabilized. But when you have the autoimmune parcel, which is Hashimoto's, it can be very problematic. And folks should understand that one of the typical things for Hashi sufferers is to avoid gluten as a trigger in the diet,
Yeah.
and also the lactose and whey proteins, casein in dairy, which you correctly talked about earlier. And we'll get into your thoughts a little bit later on, using butter, which is considered dairy but is a fat,
Yeah.
and we'll talk about that. But Sally, what I wanted to touch on now was, just going back to your sort of disordered eating pattern, and you talk a lot about the sugar mind. Talk to me about that and how that is so difficult to overcome, and that craving, and how you first started, and did you have any fallbacks or setbacks with it, with the sugar mind?
Oh God, decades of setbacks.
Hmm.
I call it the sugar mind because it's kind of like part of your ego. It's part of your being. So you can't hate part of yourself, but you have to understand it and you have to tame it. For me, I used to go into a grocery store and I'd look at food, I would imagine it and the whole sensory around my tongue, what it would taste like, what it would feel like. Like if I could feel that, in the cart it went. And I did this throughout the whole grocery store. It was a mental process. And I'd end up with this huge cart of food. Now it's just me. It's just me here. There's like $300 worth of food, maybe four. And none of it was protein. And I'd be walking with that carriage. I'd be like, I can't bring this home. I can't diet tomorrow. I can't, what am I going to do? But I couldn't put it back. And I would go through that. And I didn't have that kind of money, but I'm throwing it on a credit card. And I bring it home. And in the beginning, I would bring all this stuff home and I would eat whatever I would eat and throw it all away. And then 24 hours later, the cravings are hitting me so bad again, I'm back at the grocery store. And I would do this over and over and over. And it was horrific. And then it's like, I can't waste all this food, so I wouldn't throw it away. But then it would last me for weeks. I couldn't jump back on and diet and get better. And it controlled everything I did, everything. It controlled who I would see, who I wouldn't see, because I put on a lot of weight and I'm like, I can't go. Last time they saw me, I was like 50 pounds lighter. I can't go there. It controlled everything, everything. And I secluded myself. I buried myself with the food and then I hid. And nobody saw me. Nobody saw this. It was inside me. I would do it in private, sometimes not in private, depending who I was around. And it controlled everything. And when I took control of it, and the only way you can do it is getting rid of it. But I am an all or nothing person, and it had to go completely. And so many people didn't understand that. They're like, well, just ease into it. I'm like, no, not even possible. Or just have a little candy bar at the end of the week if you had a great week. Like, would you offer a nip to an alcoholic? No. It's like that. It's, if you haven't experienced it, you can't possibly understand it. And my daughter has watched it. So she'll see me now. She saw me through the holidays is the worst part. And I lost it last holiday season. 2.5 month long binge because I had one thing. And come January, I knew without a doubt it couldn't be anything other than all in. But she told me back then, she says, look, she goes, you're going to have to figure out a way to go through the holidays without it. She goes, you can't touch it. And I knew that, I just didn't want to know it. And so this holiday season's here, and she saw me. I says, well, let's make this, this, and this. And it was all legal. Everything was pretty much carnivore except this one thing. And I says, well, it'll be gluten-free. She goes, no. She goes, not on my watch. and I did not see what my mind was creating in the process. It's very tricky. For me, it's not the obvious of feeling the sensory around your mouth and all that. Because if I let my brain go there, I'm done. And so that hasn't happened in almost a year. It's like by being carnivore, by eating the meat, eating the fat, and really developing the mechanisms to treat, like the coping mechanisms for when the emotions hit. That has changed all that, because if I let my mind creep in, and that's what it does in the beginning, that's what derails people. It's why they can't make it past 3 weeks. It's like sugar can't be an option at all, ever. And once you know it's not an option, without a doubt, you succeed. You make it through because you won't allow your brain to go there. It's
Yeah.
just so important.
Yeah, that makes total sense. I mean, we hear our good friend Judy Cho talking about abstainers and moderators and the
Yeah.
various folks that she runs into on the journey. And I mean, with your background, abstaining has to be the way, doesn't it? And I think, Sally, you've talked about a few, and this will be a good point to talk to folks that may be on this journey and may need to be abstainers like yourself, that you experienced some pitfalls because of things that, you had added in, things like the sweeteners, things like maple syrup that is, in the animal based, we see a few of the physicians promoting a lot of maple syrup. But when you have this way of a past of eating, you just simply cannot have any sweet pass your mouth, can you?
No sweet at all. I had joined a sugar addiction group on Facebook, and that's when it really hit me. They said it's more a sweet addiction as opposed to a sugar addiction. The sugar is the physical part, but the sweet is the mental part. And anything sweet whatsoever will eventually lead. That's kind of what happened in fall of last year. I was allowing a little bit of sweeteners here and there to go in, and then sweeteners eventually led to sugar. Because it just, and I have found also with this is when you have sweet stuff or dairy stuff, it's a flavor, it does something to your body, like, and remind me to tell you what dairy did to my brain. But it doesn't allow you to focus on meat or even enjoy that, because you're thinking about all these other flavors. But once those flavors are not an option, once they are not around and you're without them for a good month anyway, it's like you start really looking forward to that meat meal. Fasting helped with that too. I've never had meat aversion, but probably because I also fast. And so when I'm looking forward to that meat meal, the way I used to look forward to a bag of Cadbury eggs, or whatnot, whatever I would eat. But now I look forward to that ribeye, or these great big 1-pound burgers, I would make in the air fryer.
Yes, absolutely delicious. Sally, you said something which relates to this topic in one of your interviews, which I thought was very poignant. You said, disordered eating is not our fault, but it is our responsibility. Just talk a little about that. And it speaks to how, as, a society and people, we've been sort of ingrained with all the wrong things being pushed at us, all these sugar-laden foods that lead us to this sort of way of eating, comfort foods that they are full of sugars and seed oils and all these things. great. It just really resonated with me when you said that.
Yeah, this has been an ongoing discussion with me and a few of my friends. It Everyone is saying that it's not your fault. It's not your fault, and it isn't. It's like what we were guided into as far as food and what doctors tell us we're supposed to be eating. It's not our fault because we're following people we trust, and so we're eating those things. People that think they're eating healthy, and they're like, but I'm eating healthy. I got rid of, this and that. And it's like, yeah, but what you're eating is still not healthy, and the people that get into the addiction the way I was, and even less so or more so, it's not our fault that we got to that point. But the thing is, I've seen so many people mess up. Oh yeah, I blew it. I'll start again tomorrow, but it's not my fault. It's not my fault this happened. And it's like, no, it's not your fault you got addicted, but it is your responsibility to do something about it if you want to change. Some people don't. Some people just are not ready to give up the things that they love, because for them, like for me, it was not healing, but burying the emotions that were hurting me, and so I wasn't ready to feel those emotions, and not eat those things. They brought me joy in a moment. Um, but these people, it's like I keep trying to express, it's like, if you want to change, if you want to be healthy, if you want something different than what you're going through right now, like if you don't want to be sick, it's like you have to change. You have to take responsibility for what you put in your mouth, for, whether you want to move or not move, the choices that you make, because the choices that you make they become who you are. And that's everything. And if you want to be something different, you have to do something different. And research, because some people, they just want you, oh, give me a link. Where did you find that? And I'm like, go research. Go dive in and see what resonates with you, what doesn't resonate, because it may not be the same as what resonates for me. And sure, I can give you links, but it's like, take the time to really dive in and do that. But, one of my friends gets very frustrated with this because, like, just give me the link, like, go do your search. Go research for yourself. Find what's going to work for you. But it is our responsibility to do that. And just by using it's not my fault as almost like a cop-out to not doing something for yourself, to not making yourself healthier, that's not okay.
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree. And the other sad part about it is that no matter, because of the propaganda out there, and specifically for me and the vegan diet and that way of eating, which we know inherently is not nutritious, it can be full of plant toxins. People also love to, as the famous saying goes, they love to hear good news about their bad habits, don't they? So, and there's so
Mm.
much info out there, with all this sort of way of eating and the standard American diet, and meat is vilified. It's just crazy. Um, so yeah, let's cut back to now. You've started the carnivore diet. You're seeing a lot of benefits. What were some of the first things after when you started carnivore that you noticed right away that were the major benefits that you saw coming back?
Well, as soon as I jumped in and started this, I literally lost 18 pounds of fluid in a couple of weeks.
Wow.
And I knew it wasn't fat. It was because my ankles went from huge to literally like one size from the knee down, down to what they should be. And I remember I took pictures of it. I posted pictures of it. But everything moved better. It's like, I didn't hurt. I didn't ache as much. But one big thing was, I remember I was taking 7,500 milligrams of potassium a day just because my body wouldn't absorb it. I had no idea it was my gut. I did not know why my body wouldn't absorb potassium. And no one tried to find out. They just kept giving me all this potassium. My daughter's like, that's going to kill you. And so when I started this, I remember I was a couple months in, and when I would be because I couldn't fast much. I could only do, I think, like a 16-hour fast. I fit the potassium between noon and 6. You're supposed to spread it out, but I was like, no, I have to do some kind of fasting. So eventually it got closer and closer. But I remember I would tell my doctor, I said, I think my potassium's too high. I said, because I feel phenomenal fasting, but when I take the potassium, I don't feel so good. And she goes, okay, well, let's drop it. They were like 5 horse pills a day. And she said, let's drop it by 1, check back in a month. I went a week and I said, I think I need to drop it again. And she said, okay. And we literally did that for 5 weeks. And then it was gone. And I was going and testing my potassium levels at the lab in the fasting. And once I got it down to once a day with the potassium, because you can't take that on an empty stomach, I was doing 24-hour fasts and eating once a day. And I was right before I would come home, I would go and get my lab work done. And at 24-hour fasted, my level was still normal in potassium. And so I'm like, okay, this is great. And so when I was able to stop the potassium or do it like once every other day, I was able to do alternate day fast. And even at the end of 48 hours, my potassium was fine. At the end of 72 hours, my potassium was fine. And so I was just like, this is incredible. And what meant the most with all this is my daughter saw this happening and she got so proud because she watched, yeah, I'm going to do this. And then, of course, no, I don't know how many times I said, I'm going to do this. And then off the wagon. And carnivore is, hello, elimination of all kind. And she was so proud because I'm off the potassium. I'm doing this. I'm not wavering. And that hit me. I was like, I need to do this. I mean, for me, but she needs me to do this. And she needs me to succeed with this. And then it just went from there. The Hashimoto antibodies, those, I can't remember exactly when I noticed. I must have been like 6 months in when I noticed the drop. And then I was like, okay, this is working, and then I just kept monitoring and they kept going down and going down and going down. So it's been incredible.
That's amazing. I also recall you, Sally, mentioning that you had done a number of food sensitivity tests at the
Yeah.
beginning of your journey, and like it lit up like a Christmas tree. And however, what you discovered was even though cheddar cheese was not on your list, it was an okay. When you eliminated cheddar, the cheese, you saw an even greater weight loss. So talk about that a little bit.
Beef, pork, and cheddar were like no sensitivity. I said, well, I guess I know where I'm going to be living. And I figured this is okay. I can do it. I got cheddar. And I would have like 4 ounces a day. I had a lot of cheddar. And I gave up all other dairy. So everything was good. But this past May, when I gave up the cheese, because I knew, I'm like, I'm doing all this fasting, I'm eating right, no sugar. I'm like, and I'm literally fighting to lose 5 pounds a month. I went, how is that possible? And so I knew I had to give up cheddar, even though it said there was no sensitivity. I'm like, it's doing something. And so I gave it up in May. I dropped 15 pounds that month, 14 or 15 pounds in May. And I went, okay. I said, it absolutely was doing something. And I've been off it. I've been off it since. But within 2 weeks of letting go of the cheddar, I was off the CPAP. And I don't know if it would have happened if it was like just all the dairy in that 2 weeks, if I had been having dairy, but I had been having dairy for a year. And the last little bit was the cheddar and off the CPAP. And I had the worst numbers they'd ever seen in a woman. I stopped breathing for super long periods. My breathing oxygen was at 30%. And that's another thing. I see people with Hashimoto saying, oh, I'm so fatigued. I sleep in all the time. And I'm like, go have a sleep test. Because my issue with the fatigue and the sleeping had nothing to do with the Hashimoto. It had to do with the sleep apnea. And I was off it. I've been off it since, and I wear an Aura ring, and it measures my oxygen levels at night, and it measures my breathing pattern too. If I touch dairy, like I had dairy a couple weeks ago, um, it immediately shows up at night. It says my oxygen level's still good, but for even just one episode, it shows, oh, you had periodic breathing last night. And I know it's because I touched dairy at a holiday party. So I'm like, okay, I know. And just recently I told coaches, I said, I wanted to know what dairy was doing to me. I just wanted to know, beyond everything else. So I drank a half a cup of heavy whipping cream, and my brain went into neurological symptoms. It was heavy. It was almost headachy. I got dizzy. I was off balance. I could not believe what it did to me. And I'm like, did I not notice this before? I mean, I knew I had a balance issue in the beginning, but there was so many things going on that I didn't notice this indirectly. And so when I drank that, and literally within 10 minutes, it started, and I got nauseous. And that's probably because the amount of fat all in one gulp. But the neurological side of it, I was shocked. And I was like, nope, this is not something I can have ever. It just, I mean, I don't know if that will ever heal or not. I don't care. But yeah, that was huge.
For me, I'm very thankful because I started off very similarly to you, Sally. I was so sensitive to everything. I was reacting to everything. I mean, I had to whittle down when I first started carnivore to just, I could hang with chicken, salmon, believe it or not, salmon, because I guess my body was used to it. That's what I had when I was a vegetarian for decades, was a lot of salmon and fish. But milk, I would, like you, I'd have a little sip of milk and my brain fog would come on full bore. I would feel achy, all the symptoms. Thankfully, slowly after healing my gut and healing my biome like you, I've been able to add dairy back in, which is kind of a blessing for me because with my oxalate dumping, having dairy in the diet really binds to a lot of the oxalates as they move out through your digestive tract. So it's beneficial for me. Also, I'm coming from a malnourished background where I'm looking to put on weight. I know it seems like an envious position for both of us. We're like, oh my goodness. But it's been good in that regard for me because it's an easy way, as we know, to put on weight is to use dairy in the diet,
Mm,
right? But I do
yeah.
not drink the liquid calories. I don't drink milk. I just use kefir and cheese right now at the minute, and it seems to do me really well, the fermented dairy types. Sally, let's talk a little bit about the steak and butter gang. That's your crew. Those are your homies. How did you link up with Bella and Adek and all the ladies there? How'd you find them, and what do you do with them?
Well, I found Emily Harvo on
Mhm.
Instagram, and I remember she posted her pictures, like the before and after. And I looked at her body shape and I went, that's my body shape. I went, and she got there. She was so thin. And I was like, I didn't even think that was remotely possible. And I went, I need to see what's going on here. And she kept talking about the challenges in the steak and butter gang. And I think I went in maybe a month or two after she did. And I joined. And my therapist, I literally sought out an addiction therapist. And she told me, she goes, you need to find a group. And I'm like, no, no, no. I do better on my own. I'm fine. And she kept mentioning a group. And I could not see the benefit in a group. I was just like, nope, I don't want to. I do very good on my own, very focused. But I joined this group. And the more we spoke in there and the more I shared, like every time there was some kind of healing, I would share. And this community speaks, like, you learn so much from the coaches, right? And then you watch the members in the community answer questions for new people exactly how the coaches would answer them. And it's remarkable. And it's like, this is great. I mean, some come in, of course, they want to talk honey and all that. We're just like, no honey. Well, because we know with sugar addiction, it's like you don't put anything sweet in your body, it's going to light you right up. But anyway, this community has been amazing. And I was just one day, I was like, Bella, you know what? what can I do more? I mean, I needed to do something more. And that's when I became a moderator. She says, well, let's try this. And I dove right in. I was in the calls and I'm answering questions. And, it was just amazing. It helped me feel part of something bigger than myself, but all in everyone with the same goal, to get healthy. And it was in such an incredible way. Like Raymond Nazan has got a program that it's a very slow build and a healthy build to nourished fasting. And people are slowly understanding that it's about the healing first and the weight loss second. They jump in, wanting to lose weight, and some will leave because they gained weight priming, but it's like, but priming gets your body nourished fully. And now, however long it takes you, it's usually a couple weeks. And then you can go into the fasting. And then if you gained something, I didn't, but if you did, it's like that, it comes off, it comes off. And then you go and your body feels great. I mean, to have the mental freedom of not thinking about food all day long and not craving any kind of food, I am never hungry. I can do, a 72, which I won't do those often, but I will do them maybe once a month. And it's like, I'm not hungry. I mean, I'll get the suggestive hunger. It's like, you're supposed to eat, but I'm like, I'm not hungry. I'll listen to my body and I'm fine, and feel phenomenal. But it's like all of this it just keeps people connected. It keeps them focused. It helps them learn. And they're trying to teach everyone coming in about really listen to your body. It's like something may not work here for you. So you may have to tweak it a bit, and it's getting people to think for themselves. And I was so focused, all or nothing. I'm on that schedule. It's like, don't change this. And I remember Raymond telling me one day, he says, you just need to let go. And I had a meltdown on the call. I'm like, I can't let go. How do I let go? What do I do? And it took me a week of processing that, and it changed everything. Then it was like I was focused because I had healed so much, but I was focused on a number on the scale, and it derailed me. And so it was like when I finally let go of that and started really focusing on my body and really what it's accomplishing, everything changed. And then the weight just kind of falls off, but it's like everything changed. And so I'm like, I need to help people that way. So I dove in and Bella says, do you want to become a coach? I'm like, absolutely. And so I got certified there. I'm doing the apprenticeship now with the coaches, but I'm going to keep doing that until I feel I can effectively help people. I want to guide in the right way and be able to listen enough to gain where they are and where they want to be. Not just what a schedule is, but you know what I mean? So
Yeah,
that's my process at the moment.
that is amazing. For myself, Sally, when I was first starting out, I part of my journey included I found Dr. Baker's presentation with Joe Rogan when I was searching
Yeah.
like a carnivore diet because my journey was basically I was down to 127 pounds and literally felt like I wouldn't be here in another few months if I had continued on that trajectory. Anything I put in my body was not being absorbed. I was bleeding from my bowels. It was awful. And COVID had hit. I didn't know where to turn. Searched. I found Sally Norton. I found her presentation on how plants could be harmful for you after eating 6 years of strict vegan and thought to myself, man, I've been doing this all wrong. I went down the rabbit hole, found Dr. Baker and Rogan that meat can heal. And I ended up joining the Rivero community. And it was very important to me on this first stages of my journey because, like you said earlier, one of especially for weight loss, people think that you've got to lose weight to get healthy. No, you got to flip that on its head. You got to get
Yeah.
healthy to lose weight. And just as you eloquently put it, and I see Coach Raymond has actually joined us. And hi, Coach Raymond. Um, it's actually really a good segue now to talk, Sally, about your daily basis now. What's a typical day for you look like in terms of eating and fasting, or even a week? Let's go through a week and how you do your weeks now, now that you're sort of fat adapted and you're eating what you want. What are the type of foods you use and how do you fast?
Well, it's funny because I haven't fasted for the past month. And I was trying to make myself, but it's that time of year. So I decided, I went, you know what? Let's see how you do. Because before, like 6 months ago, if I didn't fast, like I'd be gaining a pound a day. And so I went, okay, my body's not ready to like maintain. And now I noticed I've been playing with 5 pounds this whole month, and I'm like, oh, I said I will be able to do this. But come January, I'll be back into my routine, and what that looks like for me now is I love rolling 48s, and that's literally every 48 hours have a meal. And but the way I work it with my schedule now is Monday, Wednesday, and Friday I will fast. Tuesday and Thursday I'll have one meal, and then Saturday and Sunday 1 to 2 meals. I don't. I'm more relaxed with it on the weekend, but then right, during the week, because I mean I work in a school, so I'm out by 2:30. I'm like, I don't have to drag food with me. I'll just come home and eat. And when I eat, I will come home and have, like, I'll just throw a ribeye in the air fryer. You know, if I'll get a grill one day. But it's like you can go freezer to air fryer with a ribeye. It's amazing. If I forget to pull something out, it's like I can just put it in there frozen. Or I'll take over a pound of meat, and I'll make 2 giant burgers, put those in there. I also have pork rinds. Pork rinds, make sure they're cooked in like pork fat. Because I noticed there's some pork rinds that they'll tell you, they won't say anything about oil, just the pork rind, the salt, or whatever, pork skin, salt. And I'm like, if they're not telling you what they're cooking it in, don't eat it. It's like, because guaranteed it's some other kind of oil. Most of them, like Pork King Good, phenomenal, phenomenal. And I can't say enough about them.
I saw, I sorry to
Yeah.
interrupt you, Sally. I saw the gift package you got from them. That looks fantastic.
Oh my God, I was so surprised. I got a notice, and it says you're getting this package. So I write to them. I says, I haven't ordered anything. I did 2 weeks ago. I said, but I'm like, I don't understand. And he goes, oh no, that's a Christmas gift for being such a loyal customer. I'm like, oh, okay.
Wow.
I says, I'll take it. I was floored. I'm like, thank you, thank you. They cook in pork fat. It says right on it, cooked in pork fat. And I was like, perfect. And so they're clean. I love them. But I have to be careful, because if, like, it's like you come home and it's like your brain you already know you're going to eat. It's like, okay, you're ready to eat. And so if I dive into the pork rinds first, it's like, then I'm eating a lot of pork rinds before the meat's done. And I have to be very careful with that, because then I'll be filling up with those and not like the meat. And I will eat the meat anyway, but then it's like too much. Then it's like my system doesn't feel right. So I try to just take a handful and put it with the meat.
Yeah.
Butter. The whole first year, I didn't add extra. I would just have whatever the fatty meat was, and it was plenty. But when I heard that, fat is really good, and, the extra butter, I started having butter. I mean, I have no gallbladder, but it's been like 20 years, so I don't, everything's adapted. So I started making the brown butter bites. Let me tell you though, that first time I made them, I must have been eating salt. I must have been eating something. They tasted very sweet. My brain lit up, and it scared me, because all I could think about the rest of the day and the next day was those butter bites. I just wanted to eat the butter bites, and I literally ate the whole batch.
Interesting point though, that your brain lit up thinking with that sweet taste. Did you find it afterwards if with the salt?
I did later. I did. I went into one of the group meetings, and because I was thinking I can never have this again, and this is a perfect way to get in fats. And one woman said, yeah, she goes, I had that happen too. She goes, and then I just ate it till I didn't want it anymore.
Yeah.
And so it was a risk, but I did it. But actually, the next time I made it, all I could taste was salt. I couldn't taste the sweet at all. And I was like, huh. I said, so obviously my body needed the salt, because when I can't taste the salt, my body needs it. And so I'll add some more to the meat. But if something tastes extra salty, I don't need it at all. It's like my body's had its fill. And so now I can make them without a problem. I'll make them all the time, and They don't scare me at all, and they don't make me want to eat sweet stuff.
Sally, let me take this moment to ask you. This is, and we're going to get into our question and answer in just a minute, or actually, we'll start it off now. But one of the questions or comments, I'm going to play devil's advocate for you here a little bit, okay? Is that I get this levied at me because I was a vegan for 6 years and vegetarian for decades. Since I've been promoting the carnivore diet, I've had a few comments from people saying to me, you've gone from one disordered eating pattern to now another on carnivore. What would your answer to be to those folks that say that you've gone from disordered eating on your old diet to now carnivore, another disordered eating pattern? How would you respond?
I'm not exactly sure why they would call it disordered eating. I'm eating, nutritious food. I know people think it is restrictive, and if you look from the outside in, it seems that way. But when you're eating nutritious food and your body is healing and you're feeling amazing when just a year prior you thought you were going to die soon, it's like, I'm sorry, I will take this way over any other way. And it's nutritious. I know everyone thinks you need vegetables. I never liked them to begin with. So it was like, it was a no-brainer for me not to eat them. I'd be like, look at a salad, and my sister loves vegetables, so does my daughter. And I'd be like, it's just a bowl of leaves. I don't get it. I couldn't fathom. And then when they went with the spring mix, I'm like, that's even worse. There's no crunch. I couldn't fathom that. But it's, what I was doing was absolutely disordered. It was binge eating. It was horrible. But this stopped the binges. It stopped the mental anxiety for it, the whole mental games you play about sugar and eating and not eating. And I don't even think about food. It's like, I know what I'm going to make, but it's like I don't have to think twice about it. And I feel healthy and I look healthy. So it's more where they're at than where we're at. It's their place in their thinking, and that's okay, because everyone has, they're in their own spot. It's like spirituality. It's like, that's where you are in your spirituality. This is where I am. With food, it's very, very similar.
And I've had that said to me, and amen. Thank you for that, Sally. That is exactly how I get back at them. I just show them the before and after face to face that I just posted this past Friday of my depression and malnourishment, as opposed to now
Yeah,
being happy,
yeah,
joyful, no depression. Lost 112 pounds. You put all those conditions we talked about into remission more. Because, you've healed all those conditions for you. There really isn't an argument. Once people experience the benefits, there's no turning back, is there?
yeah. No, oh God, no. I mean, this is the only thing I've ever done where I'm just, I'm not doing anything else. I'm like, I'm healthy. I feel good. The food tastes great. I'm not restricting myself in any way. I mean, I know they can see it that way, but I'm not. I eat as much as I want. If I have a day where I'm hungrier, I'll eat two ribeyes. I mean, not that I could ever do that, but you know what I mean? It's like
Yep.
I could eat a pound of bacon if I wanted to.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It's just, it's not restrictive to me. The way
Yes.
I was eating was restrictive because that restricted everything else in my life, everything I did.
Well said. Carnivore Latina asks you, Sally, could you, excuse me, let me just get it, pull it up. Hi, Sally. What advice can you give to us to be less insulin resistant? Because, I guess you, as part of your healing journey, is insulin resistance. Any advice?
Eating less often, eating less often. I see people that are eating carnivore. I mean, during primate, it doesn't matter, but the first, getting off sugar does not matter. Eat all day if you have to. But after that, when I see people eating like 3 times a day is fine too, because we did that 50 years ago and we didn't have insulin resistance. It was 5-6 hours in between meals, breakfast, lunch, dinner, and we didn't have it then because you gave the body a chance to get rid of, or actually not spike up the insulin constantly. Like, we eat all day now, and people think that we put on these programs to eat every 2 hours, and I'm like, you're not gonna get rid of your insulin resistance. You're gonna hold on to that, which is gonna make all these other diseases still develop. It's gonna make the autoimmune issues. I mean, it's the frequency in eating. That's why fasting helps get rid of it. And if you do OMADs or even two MADs, and there's a huge difference between the meals, I should say time difference between the meals, then you can get rid of that. I mean, it might take a little longer. I'm not sure. It depends on people's healing process, and what was exactly wrong in their body to begin with, as far as how long it's going to take. But I noticed I tested, must have been 9 or 10 months in, fasting insulin. And at one point it was like 6.9, and then it dropped because I couldn't understand. I says, I'm doing carnivore. How is it that high? And then it dropped to like 1.8, I think, something like that. I'm getting all my numbers mixed up, but I know it dropped in it, and it was great. But I've noticed when I look at some people and they're eating like only 2-3 hours between meals, thinking that that's good. I mean, it's better than what they were doing. If you're doing standard American diet and eating all day long, it's definitely better than that. But if you truly want to get rid of insulin resistance, you need huge gaps between when you eat. OMADs are perfect for that.
Yeah.
If you can't fast longer, then OMAD like 23 hours and then take an hour to eat. And I think that would knock it right out of your body.
Great response. I really appreciate that, Sally. Thank you for that. This next question actually comes from my wife. She has been eating the carnivorous way with me and seeing great benefits herself. But one of the things she's been experiencing is the esophagitis, that you suffered with. So she's had that for a little while, but it's been more pronounced. Just so you can explain to folks the symptoms, and then how long it sort of took you to heal that as part of your journey.
I never even knew the name of it.
Yeah.
I remember, and I've had it for so long, and my doctor said, oh, that's an acid reflux thing. And I says, I don't have acid reflux. He said, trust me. And he put me on Prevacid, which I was on for years. And it did help. It helped those symptoms. Because what would happen, and so many people have this, is you would eat something. Chicken does it, but now I know chicken's super high on my sensitivity. Bread, because it's dry, eating too fast, it creates this pressure right here.
Yes.
Like a bubble.
Yes.
And to me, it's the only way you can describe it. It's like a bubble. And then if it persists, which it will burst. Now, I was eating, I came home eating in the car, McDonald's, and I'm drinking their orange, which isn't soda, it's like high C. And I'm drinking that and I feel the bubble. And I'm like, what the heck? Now, this is in the very beginning. And I'm driving, all of a sudden the bubble burst. Now, I couldn't swallow. Okay, the soda's still there. I'm holding it in my mouth. I had swallowed some, and all of a sudden soda flew all over my car. I was like, I pulled over and I'm like, what the hell just happened? And I had no idea. And then, of course, I started the Prevacid, and most of it stopped. But in the beginning of carnivore, I noticed if I ate too quickly, all of a sudden I'd feel and I'd just stop. If you catch it soon enough, you just wait, and then eventually it just kind of like lowers and lets go, and you're usually pretty good. I have stood up, and literally my sister-in-law gave me this idea, kind of jounce, just jump and land on my feet to kind of move things along. And that will help. But if it's beyond that point, there is no helping it. It's just going to sit there. It's going to get painful, and then it's going to create all this phlegm, and then you're going to be spitting out phlegm, and eventually you throw up. And it's not a pleasant experience. It's horrific. The only time something like that happens now is if I go out to eat and there's some kind of seed oil or something that they're cooking the meat with, and I will feel it. And because there was actually a Brazilian steakhouse I went to, not my favorite. It's in Leominster. It was a different one out in Worcester, and almost immediately I felt it, and I went, "This doesn't happen. I'm eating meat." Like, what's going on? And I went, and it kept happening. I had to go in the bathroom. I'd come back out. I'm like, okay, it resolved. Usually once it resolves, I can just keep eating and I'm fine. It kept happening at this place. I have no idea what they were cooking their food in, but it had to have been some kind of oil
Mm.
that my body was saying, hell no.
All right, Sally. So we're going to wind up now, as I usually do, with some fun questions for you. And thank you again for this today. This has
Thank you.
been really, really fun to talk with you. I think I know the answer to this already. You've mentioned it today, but my famous first question is your favorite cut of meat and way to prepare it.
um, I wanted to say ribeye, but it's picana. I've never actually cooked it myself. I get it at the Brazilian steakhouse in Leominster, called Comaquito. But yeah, I never knew what picana was. If they brought it to the table, I'm like, I tried it. You know, I keep pulling. Now when they come to the table, I literally get 15 slices on my plate. But yeah, it is amazing.
It sure is. And that actually ties right into, because I now know the answer, your favorite place to eat out being carnivore must be a Brazilian steakhouse, right?
Yep, Comaquito.
Nice. And lastly, Sally, for you is where do you want to be in 5 years? What do you want to be doing? You want to be continuing to get up that coach's level? What does Sally Bowers want to be doing in 5 years from now?
Yeah, I I want to be um, definitely coaching, but inspiring, reaching people, and this kind of format helps that because when people listen and they hear the stories, there's just nothing better. It helps people so much. But yeah, I absolutely want to be helping people go from kind of like where I was and where they are to where they can be, in a much, much healthier state.
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you, Sally. Sally, where can people find you? I know Carnivore Angel Healing here, obviously on Instagram. Do you have any other spots where they can find you, the Steak and Butter Gang? Let us know.
Yep, I moderate right now. I'm moderating the calls on the Steak and Butter Gang. Hoping to be coaching soon. But yeah, and in Instagram, Carnivore Angel Healing, because I answer a lot of people privately through there.
Yep, fantastic. Sally, thanks again so much for taking the time out to be with me today. I really appreciate you. We appreciate you. You are a beacon of light for all those out there, and thank you for sharing your story. Thank you, Sally. Very best
Thank
to
you.
you. We appreciate you.
Bye.
And that's a wrap on this episode of Carnivorist Chats. If you've made it this far, I want to say thank you for listening, and also thank you in advance for liking, subscribing, or sharing this episode. Thanks again to the good folks at Carnivore Bar and Equip Foods. Don't forget to check the link in the show notes to get a discount on their products. And also, don't forget you can book me for a 30-minute carnivore coaching session through Avero Health. Again, the link will be in the show notes. Until the next time, be well.